some states are blue, or that there are different personalities here or there. Literally, the structure of that authority, the history of that authority, is very different, and in fact, it's not even stable. It may change from year to year, depending on a variety of circumstances. So it's a challenging environment. So I want to talk a little bit about this sort of state policy context and being effective there. And in the best of all possible worlds, the state board is working very closely with the SCA leadership. People are on the same page and they're able to drive a lot of change. Unfortunately, we're probably not there in every place, and some of those reasons are structural, and some of those are more personality. Then I want to talk a little bit about implementation from the SCA out to the districts and schools and classrooms, but from the particular lens of technology and of those people who are working, the leadership in the SCAs driving that conversation about instructional technology. So as I think about what I've taken away, I mean, we've had a lot of conversations and tried to prioritize and come up with long lists, but as actually taking something that Hillary Goldman said, in the policy business, I've got to break it down to something pretty simple. I think without a question, and we didn't talk a lot about this, but it's a tremendous opportunity, there's going to be influx of a lot of new teachers in the next few years. The boomers may hang on a little bit longer because of the bad economy, but as Tom showed us, the math works. We're going to have a lot of new teachers coming into this system. It represents a tremendous opportunity right now, and we have an obligation to make sure that the profession is something that is attractive to people, and that this is something they want to go in, and we're getting the best and the brightest in the profession. So we should talk, we have that conversation. I'm not sure we've talked about that a lot over the last 24 hours. I think without question, everyone has agreed that we need more responsive systems to prepare and support teachers, and it's going to look different than it does today. It's going to be better linked to practice, that we're going to have better feedback on effectiveness. We know that there's going to be more constrained resources, so this isn't some new system that we're going to build on top of what we've got. There are going to be more players, more different types of players involved. There's going to be more innovation. There's probably not going to be one new approach. And as well, there's been a shift in the national policy conversation between, and Peter alluded to this, but I'm going to emphasize it, between all of the work up front in certification and licensure, and basically trying to ensure that we get it right up front, and then just hope and pray that it works out once the teachers are in the schools. To a system where there is some clear expectations set up and minimal barriers. We put people in and we support them, and then we move them out if they're not working or support them to be more effective. Much shorter cycle times. I think without question we're seeing increasing expectations for what all students know, should know, and be able to do. And some of this is in the basics. As we've talked about AYP, the one thing I would say to this audience coming from inside the Beltway, the expectation that all children should be able to read and do basic math, and all kids, is something that I think there is large consensus on in this country, right? So how that has been instantiated in AYP and the assessment system, that's a different conversation. But I think without question, too, we're talking about new sets of skills and knowledge that kids need, as we talk about 21st century skills. And then again, we were talking about for all students, and I think we can't forget that in an increasingly diverse society. Right? Without question, we're going to be a majority-minority school system by 2030, majority-minority nation by a few years after that. I think it's quite clear we're going to need to use technology in new ways, and in fact, if we're serious for meeting our goals for education, if we are serious for that, we have to use technology. It's not a question of if, but how. And we need sustained and dedicated investments and leadership to ensure that the platforms, tools, and resources are universally available in colleges of education, but also in K-12. There's a lot of conversations in the groups I've been about how do you do one or the other. We need to do both, but I think the thing that I want to say is that the future may be here, but it's not evenly distributed. We're not there. This setting that we're trying to prepare our teachers for is not there in too many places in K-12. So we need to bring everybody there, and we can't forget that. As well as we need these skills in teachers, we need them in kids, right? I'm not sure we've had great conversations or clear expectations if we're talking about the teachers that we need. We have this agreement, and we're acting on this in K-12 for students right now. So, and then the last big observation is that we're potentially sitting on a very radical and quick tip here on the way have been organized. And so we see New Hampshire starting to lead the way here, but we're looking into the SCA reauthorization. think the administration, and Barbara Means highlighted that, has got some very different and big ideas. And so there may be some very different kinds of proposals coming at the federal level. Certainly, I know the conversations with the Council of Chief State School Officers are very progressive and have been, maybe surprising to some people. Common Core standards, which is not something that we've talked about. But if we go to Common Core standards, and we agree then as a nation on the reading and math skills that all kids should have, that is going to profoundly affect how we prepare teachers to teach in those disciplines. In fact, I would argue you would probably want to go to some set of national training and opportunities, and it might change the way, that organization in very dramatic ways. So, to talk specifically about sort of state boards and state policymakers, I think Fred Bramante has it exactly right there, and as does Peter. There's tremendous authority there. There is a continuous need, though, to educate that policymaker audience about the need for alignment, about the changing circumstances, and about the authorities that they have. And so to highlight, again, the authorities that have been there, right, but have not been acted on. Graduation and testing requirements for kids. Preparation program approval. Very likely to see that opening up. Initial licensure, assessment, so you're going to see more alternate routes. Tiered licensure. The closing or maybe the opening up of licensure loopholes. Certainly there's tremendous opportunity with relicensure and the professional development that's required there. State data systems, huge issue. Teacher evaluation and tenure. One of the things we haven't talked about very much as well is state pay policies, right? Pay scales, performance pay, differential pay by subjects, geographies. We have differentiated teams. What does that look like? Do we have the ability to even do that? And where does that authority sit? Is it at the state level or at the local level? As well as pension policies, right? That may be disincentives to participating in teams or continuing to be involved. So in terms of, and Karen certainly encouraged specific opportunities for action, I do want to mention, and it would be remiss for not mentioning NASB, National Association of State Boards of Education, this year is working to develop policy recommendations for the 21st century educator. It is this conversation. State board members from across the country are working together to develop and review and make recommendations on this set of policies right now. This is ongoing work. The report will be released in October. I strongly encourage you to engage with that organization, and I would be happy personally to help you to connect you to that work. At the same time, they recognize that the importance of getting the K-12 structure right. They're also opening that up, looking at online learning, blended learning, different models of time and space. State boards of education engaging with their members are going to come out with a policy report in October to drive that conversation nationally and also in the states. Tremendous opportunity there. So from the perspective of state educational technology leadership, just a couple of levers, an observation here, as well as a dilemma. One is that every state has a state educational technology plan. These are approved often by the State Board of Education, and they provide a vision for what we want our schools and classrooms to look like. I think it's very important for the people in this room to engage in that process and understand where the state and the state board and the state vision is for where we are going and align to that. The state educational technology directors have had a strong emphasis on professional development. Many have partnered with their colleges of education, but not always, and that focus has been on in-service. So I know that there is already conversation to be had about pre-service as well, because certainly we'd love to be doing this up front. And certainly then an observation. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are great examples happening in states. There are tremendous, actually, companies in this room. There's a little bit of joke about the back channel conversation. Someone said, oh, we should partner with business and get money. I know Ken will talk more about it. There's a lot more, and that I think is completely the wrong way to think about it. There's tremendous insights, experience, tools being built in response, in partnership with education. So we need to take advantage of those partnerships and think much more seriously about what a partnership looks like there. And I think the educational technology space happens to be one where there is tremendous back and forth and communication and collaboration, as well as we heard internationally as well. So the dilemma, though, I think for us, Barbara Means then said, it was a surprising takeaway for her in thinking about the National Educational Technology Plan. So she went to state educational technology directors and they said, what should be in the technology plan? And